Have you ever sat down to work on something that could literally double your revenue or more, but then find yourself scrolling social media instead? Or maybe you've had those mornings where you wake up feeling like your business is on the verge of collapse, even though objectively you're doing well. I've worked with over 200 entrepreneurs the last 4 years, and here's what I've discovered. It's not your strategy that's keeping you stuck. It's what's happening in your brain. In this 3-part series, I'm going to show you exactly how anxiety and self-doubt are sabotaging your business results and the neuroscience-backed system to break free from it. I'm Lee Ganning, former growth partner at a 7-figure company and host of a top 2% podcast. But more importantly, I've helped entrepreneurs who are drowning in self-doubt transform into confident business leaders who scale to 100K months. So in today's video, I'm going to show you the 3 hidden ways anxiety and self-doubt are actually programmed into your brain and how to identify when they're sabotaging your business decisions. In part 2, I'm going to give you my exact framework for rewiring these patterns and the identity you need to step into. And in part 3, we'll cover implementation. So building the structure to make this transformation permanent. But first, let me show you why this matters more than any strategy you could implement. So let me take you back to when I was partnered in a business that was doing 300K a month. Everything looked amazing, but I was a mess inside. And I remember sitting in front of my laptop, completely paralyzed by decisions I needed to make. And I had 3 different coaches at the time, all giving me strategy. I knew exactly what I needed to do. We needed to let go of 3 closers, 1 setter. I needed to take on said setting and closing and help build out the systems that were going to make those really successful on a new offer, and help emotionally regulate the CEO and make strategic decisions and dial and DM over 200 people per day. But I need to help fix all of these systems and do it fast so that I'm not caught in the trenches of doing all these things that somebody else could be doing. And when things were going wrong, my frustration would come up because I was anxious and I wasn't really processing it. I was having anxiety attacks again. And the worst part, I was beating myself up. I would tell myself I was lazy, I was undisciplined, that I needed to just get my shit together. And I was high at times for this level of business. But what I didn't realize then, but I understand very clearly now, is that what I was experiencing wasn't a character flaw. It was my brain's anxiety response being triggered by growth. And so picture this. There is something called a growth anxiety loop. I like to call it the growth anxiety loop. Our brain scans for different potential threats. And this isn't a flaw. It's actually your brain doing its job trying to protect you. So your brain evolved you to keep alive, not to help scale your business to 100K a month. But from an evolutionary standpoint, taking risks could mean death. And your brain treats business risks with the same seriousness. Now, these triggers are what neuroscientists call an amygdala hijack, where your ancient brain, the reptilian part of your brain, the limbic system, they take over from the rational front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. And this circle looks like very simple. So imagine you get a growth opportunity at the start, and then the next step is your brain receives a potential threat or risk. The amygdala activates and it creates anxiety and self-doubt. And then you avoid the threat through procrastination, overthinking, self-sabotage, going to your coping mechanisms, whatever. And what's fascinating is that your brain actually rewards you for avoiding the perceived threat by giving you a hit of relief, saying, oh, it's okay, you don't have to do this. So you're literally being neurochemically reinforced to procrastinate. And when I was starting off in my business, this looked like anytime I had a sales call set in place and somebody would cancel, I would be like, oh, it's okay, like I don't have to go through this now. Just craziness going on. And this isn't just theory. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience found that entrepreneurs experience heightened amygdala activation when making business decisions with uncertain outcomes compared to making personal decisions. And another study from Stanford Business School showed that entrepreneurs who learned to regulate response made 28% better business decisions and reported 43% higher confidence levels. Now have a think about this. In the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, he talks about how just adding an extra 10% better decision making can be astronomical for you, because in the day you're making 35,000 decisions. So imagine 35,000 and let's say 50% of them are messed up. If you make a 28% improvement, you're making what, 4,900, 5,000 better decisions per day. Like, that's the moments where you stop self-sabotaging. You don't procrastinate. You don't overthink. You don't spiral into chaos. And instead, you're more powerful. You're more magnetic. You're more aligned. You're more regulated. You move forwards at a better state of being. And what's fascinating is that the brain affects high performers more intensely. The more intelligent and capable you are, the more sophisticated your brain becomes at creating justifications for avoidance. And this is why traditional advice like, yeah, just push through or be more disciplined doesn't work. You're fighting against your neurobiology, not character flaws. Now, how do you identify this? So how do you know when this is happening to you? Let me share the 3 most common patterns I see in people that we work with. Pattern number 1 is the task switching spiral. So this looks like starting your day with clear intentions, but then bouncing between tasks, checking emails, social medias, and ultimately avoiding the one revenue generating activity you should be doing. So if you find yourself busy all day, but making no progress on the things that would actually move your business forward, that's not a productivity issue. That's anxiety manifesting as avoidance. I was speaking to a guy the other day, and this guy was just getting started with his business as well, because sometimes we have these conversations. And he was saying, yeah, I feel like I need to build out my entire course first, and I need to do more things in there before I end up selling more people in. I'm like, well, how are you going to sell more people? How are you going to have good feedback on what you have if people aren't going through it? You can build out an entire course, an entire program, but if you don't have close, intimate feedback on that thing, you could be adding to the mix of why the coaching industry gets a bad name, or why the service industry gets a bad name, or why people talk shit. And nobody wants that. No. Pattern number 2, the perfection paralysis. This is when you know what to do, but you keep researching, planning, or waiting for the perfect time to execute. You might tell yourself you're being thorough, but really it's fear of failure disguised as preparation. And again, this goes back to that previous example. And I've seen this loads of times with people when they want to hire as well. I specifically remember speaking to a guy who was at 50K a month a little while back. And he was telling me how he was so burnt out. He was trying to dial in all his systems. And he was like, I feel like I can't hire somebody until I've got everything right. And then I'm going to go and get somebody. And instead he was doing all these $5, $10, $15 tasks within his business that just were so much below what his threshold of task should be. If you're looking to make 100K a month, you should be looking at your tasks and saying hey, is this actually genuinely worth my time? Is this the most important thing that I could be doing right now? If not, maybe look at delegating. Now, pattern number 3, the success sabotage. This one's tricky because it happens when things are going really well. So you're approaching a revenue goal, then suddenly you make decisions that undermine your progress. You pick fights with your team members, you change strategies while you're moving down a direction, or even creating personal drama that diverts your focus. Your brain is literally creating problems to prevent you from facing the anxiety of actually succeeding. We had this a little while ago. We had a client that in his first few weeks, he gained 10 clients and then he just plateaued. And I was like, why is this guy plateauing? And he started coming on his calls and he kept saying how his girlfriend was disrespecting him all the time and that he wasn't sure if he wanted to be in the relationship or not. And he was having so much uncertainty because this was coming up as an abandonment wound for him as well. And towards another few weeks later, he ended up letting go of this relationship after there was more disrespect. There was more, just so much shit. And do you know how much progress he made in those next few weeks? It was astronomical. It was fucking tremendous. The amount of difference that he showed in his energy. He was showing up in the gym. He'd lost a ton of weight. He lost 18 pounds or something in the matter of a month. And it was he was just showing up in such a better light because he was previously sabotaging his growth by being in this relationship. And here's what I want you to really understand about your entrepreneurial brain. Your prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain, which is where strategic planning, rational decision-making happening, things like knowing what to do, knowing what to prioritize, knowing how to create structure that moves you forward towards a success rather than being in reactive mode, that actual proactive structure building, deciding part. When anxiety triggers your amygdala, it literally shuts down access to this part of your brain. That's when the overwhelm happens. That's when you get reactive. That's when you have a ton of mental clutter and you sit down, you don't know what to do. That's where you get into that place where you feel like you should be further along, but you're not because you've been operating from back here. It's not a willpower issue. It's literally neurology. And the good news here is that your brain is not metal or plastic. It can be rewired. And in part 2 of these series, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that with a simple framework that takes less than 2 minutes a day. So if you've been feeling like anxiety and self-doubt are holding your business back, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not broken. Your brain is doing exactly what it's evolved to do. And in part 2 of this series, which you can see in the link in the description, I'm going to show you the exact framework for breaking this pattern, the same systems that have helped my clients hit 100K months. So hit subscribe, hit the notification button so that you don't miss it. And if any of these patterns resonate with you, let me know in the comments which one you identify with most. And again, with that said, we'll see you in the next video. Peace and love. Bye.